2004, fall 2008. In the spring of 2004, we made a trip to the Humane Society to find a new addition for our family. We immediately noticed a sweet black one-year-old lab with white on his chest and toes, a flopped-over ear, and a short tail. He was the only dog not barking, and he seemed to be politely asking us to take him home. His name was Marshall, and he was a stray. The lonely look on his face tugged at our hearts. When we took him out of the kennel, he gently put his head in our lap and climbed up to put his face next to ours. We immediately fell in love. However, we were one of 3 families that wanted to bring Marshall home. Waiting was very difficult. Finally, the call came, and Marshall was ours. Marshall brought us all the joys of a puppy without all the mess, except for taking a bite out of the coffee table when he first arrived. He was very social and wanted to be wherever we were. In his sweet way, he would snuggle next to each of us looking for affection and letting us know he loved us too. He was our big baby and even enjoyed being held like one. The closer the better. Marshall also knew we were his family and made sure we were all safe, but never acted aggressively or wild. A loving disposition and cute face made Marshall an instant hit with family and friends, both the 2- and 4-legged kind. Our neighbors, Monica and Bill, opened their home to Marshall so that he could play with their 2 black labs, Jazzy and Joe. Marshall took this invitation to mean he could come and go as he pleased. Every morning he would put his paws on Mama's bed and let her know he was ready for action. He would get his bone, then talk at the door to go out. He immediately headed next door and barked for his girlfriend Jazzy to come out to play. They raced around the yards and played for hours. When it was time for Jazzy to go in, Marshall would head to the next house to find his other black lab friend, Stormy. We found it very difficult not to spoil our wiggle butt. While we had some pretty strict rules in our house before Marshall arrived, in no time at all he melted Dad's heart. Each wag of his tail and sad puppy face, each rule was stretched a little further until it could no longer be enforced. Soon, he was allowed in the family room.
That's perfect.
Then the living room, then the couch, then the bed. Then the front seat of the car. The only rule that held was that he could not be in the kitchen when we were preparing or eating food. Marshall seemed okay with that, but couldn't stand not knowing what was going on. He found that if he climbed onto the couch, he would have a better view to keep an eye on us from the family room. Besides playing with his family and friends, Marshall's favorite activities included chasing and chewing on tennis balls and romping around in the snow. He also liked swimming in the lake. He was afraid of the pool, but his short tail made it difficult for him to stay afloat unless he paddled twice as hard. Marshall was also a great hunter and enjoyed bringing us his prizes, including bunnies, deer carcasses, and even a skunk. I remember that day.
Easter Sunday.
Yep. Marshall never wandered too far from his family except one snowy day when he got disoriented in a snowstorm and ended up on a family's porch in the next town. They brought him to the vet and we picked him up the next day. Thank goodness our Marshy was just fine. Another time we called for Marshall to come home but couldn't find him anywhere in the neighborhood. He was seen earlier with his girlfriend Jazzy, so we called Bill and Monica to find out if they were missing together. They told us he was fine and having pizza night with them. They wanted to know if it was okay for Marshall to stay a few more minutes until dinner was over. When it was time to come home, they called to tell us that Marshall was on his way so we could open the door to let him in. After that, Wiggles, Monica's name, joined Jazzy and Java a couple times a week for dinner and doggy fun. Dad liked to call him with a French accent, Marshall, Marshall, my French poodle. He was fine with anything we did as long as he was included, even when we dressed him up with wigs, scarves, shoes, or sunglasses. One Christmas, Marshall came home from visiting the neighbors happily decorated with red bows around his neck. On other occasions, the girls in the neighborhood painted his nails in their school colors and gave him a spa bath with lavender. Kylie made him a cape costume for Halloween one year and he wore it proudly. Another day he came home after playing with Jazzy with a note tied to his collar that read, Marshall rocks. Marshall seemed very human. He was eager to please, very smart, and seemed to know just what we were thinking or feeling. When he wasn't feeling well, he would curl up between Mom and Dad and snore loudly. When we prayed, he let us hold his front paws and then would bow his head when we did. When we were ready to go someplace, he just assumed that he was included and jumped into the van. And when his friends came over to play, he knew to take them to our snack drawer for a treat. He also liked privacy and hid behind the tall grass when he had to do his duty. Jordan took Marshall to school for show and tell, and he was very well behaved. He eagerly performed all of his tricks, but for some reason shaking hands was one command that took some time for him to learn. Perhaps he thought shaking hands was too formal and that wiggling his whole body was a more fitting greeting. Nevertheless, Monica tried on many occasions to show Marshall how to shake by using Jazzy and Java as an example.
Could never do it.
However, he was content just watching them and shook his tail in approval of their accomplishments. It finally took Dad a couple of dedicated weeks to convince Marshall that shaking hands was a good skill to learn. In August of 2008, Marshall suddenly became very sick. His blood test showed he was having problems with his kidneys, so we brought him to the animal hospital for fluids and antibiotics. We think he may have eaten a sick animal. We continued to have his blood monitored weekly, and slowly his appetite came back. We were happy to have another month together, but in late November his health went downhill quickly. We had hoped he would make it to the weekend, but in a few short days he quietly said his goodbyes to each of us. Even in his weakened state, he was able to make it upstairs to Kylie's room and fell asleep under her bed. The next night he made it to Jordan's room and slept curled up on his bed. By Tuesday night he was no longer able to eat or drink. Marshall lay down in his kennel head first, which he had never done before, and we knew it was time. While we enjoyed other four-legged friends before Marshall, we never grew as close to any other pet as we had with him. In such a short time, he became a member of our family and a best friend to many. We miss him every day. He gave us so much love and joy. We will never forget you, our sweet Marshy boy. In May of 2009, we say farewell to Marshall by burying your ashes near a white birch tree planted in honor of your sweet puppy dog life. You will always be part of our family, and every time we see white puffy clouds go by, we'll think of you playing and sleeping on your big marshmallow bed with all your doggy friends in the beautiful blue sky. We love you forever.
Very
Good book.
Very nice. Oh, thank you.
That was yours.
That's a great picture of it, too.
These are Marshall's remains.
Wiggle butt.
Yep. Will be with us. We'll plant him with the tree and watch him grow. Special dog to be able to touch our hearts like he did in such a short time. I know he blessed our lives, and I know his life was blessed by the people who are here. So